Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening. First tonight, one of the most disrupted years in our history will end with yet more disruption. The Taste of Tasmania Festival is set to be another scalp of the coronavirus crisis, with council officers recommending the cancellation of the summer mainstay. Let's go to our reporter Ebony ABBLITT live at the Hobart waterfront. Ebony, good evening. It's still 7 months away. Why pull the pin now?
Kim, it's mainly down to a high level of uncertainty. In 7 months, council officers don't know how feasible it will be to have this waterfront area here swarming with people. Financially, it's also a big risk, and it's a demonstration of the pressure many Tasmanian councils are facing at the moment. Let's take a look. The Taste of Tasmania is a summer tradition. Over 3 decades, it's become one of the biggest public events on our calendar. Crowds like this in 7 months, hard to imagine, at a time when coronavirus means strict social distancing.
It does attract about 20 to 30,000 people per day, and we're going to be looking more like even gatherings of 500 might be problematic by that stage.
Council officers are now recommending the event be scrapped due to so much uncertainty, citing financial and sponsorship pressure and the practicality of crowds.
It doesn't come as any surprise, but it still hurts. You know, it's a very disappointing outcome.
The event can be a big money earner for local producers and a profile builder for businesses like BRUNY Island Cheese and Beer Co. Its owner is disappointed but understands.
It's the biggest food festival in Australia. It's the oldest food festival in Australia. And, you know, to be a part of it has really helped my business over the last decade.
Our hope will be that with them making this decision, they won't close the door of another model to be considered, perhaps a model more in keeping with the times.
The motion will be voted on Monday, with councillors told it's difficult to justify spending $1 million on an event with so many unknowns, when Hobart City has taken a $10 million hit to its budget.
Given we've got to cut all sorts of other really essential things in the next year's budget, it just doesn't feel right to be spending even more on the taste.
It's just one example of the pressure councils are facing across the state. The federal government announcing some assistance today. $16 million to be split up between Tasmania's 29 local governments.
This is funding that will go through local governments to halls, community halls, to playgrounds like this one, roads and roundabouts that will help pave our way to recovery.
Hobart is set to consider smaller events, but coronavirus means this year, ending with a bang, might be a little more muted. Ebony ABBLITT, 7 Tasmania News.
Well, after months of distance learning, Year 11 and 12 students across Tasmania are gearing up to return to school on Monday. But amid disruption due to the pandemic, the Education Department says exams will be modified to ease the pressure.
The last day of home learning. This Rosny College student eager to return to a normal classroom after a challenging few months.
I'm really excited. It'll be a lot of fun to finally be back and, actually at school. It's been weird doing online schooling, but it will be really nice to just be back for once.
Public primary school and college students set to be back on Monday, with facilities such as Burnie's HELLYER College putting in extra measures to stay safe.
We're working to ensure that wherever possible there are social distancing measures in place, so as the easings of restrictions occur, the greatest prevention or protection that we can afford ourselves is our own behaviour.
Catholic schools also returning and adopting similar practices.
We've set up all of our classrooms, our cleaning routines, we've got our desks spaced, our queues organised and so on. So there's a lot that's gone into preparation for getting the kids back.
The Education Department planning to alter final assessments to relieve added exam stress.
Exam timetable will still run from the 9th of November to the 19th of November. Some of the exams will be modified and to reflect the disruption and the learning time.
And that's both to make learning manageable, but importantly it's to address any anxiety levels to make sure that students are well, in good shape and optimistic about their future at year's end.
However, Labor is calling for more mental health support as many adjust back to regular schooling.
There's clearly a need for more support staff in our schools, particularly in an uncertain time such as a pandemic, but it should continue post the pandemic too. We need to put an emphasis on student wellbeing.
And so there are a lot of supports for our students in terms of their mental health and wellbeing, including a check-in app, for example. And so our schools and colleges are informed of exactly how our students are feeling.
As some at the end of their education remain confident about future university applications.
I think the teachers have provided a lot of help in those areas, so I don't feel like I'm as disadvantaged compared to everyone else, so I feel like I can still be competitive.
Years 7 to 10 students are expected to return on June 9. Ruby COMMANE, 7 Tasmania News.
And with the return to school for select students next week, authorities are reminding motorists to slow down and pay attention. Police are set to patrol roads near school zones during peak drop-off and pick-up times.
But we're now seeing an increase in traffic, so there'll certainly be an increase in peak times for drop-offs for schools. We're asking people to slow down for those school zones and be very aware of young children out and about around the place.
Drivers also reminded to adhere to the 40 km/h speed limit near school buses displaying flashing lights. Tasmania has entered day 6 without any new cases of coronavirus. There are now just 12 active cases in the state, with 4 of those in hospital. 201 people have so far recovered. The virus has claimed 13 lives here. A drug-fuelled armed robber who held up a pregnant worker with a pistol and machete has been sentenced to 7 years behind bars. The court heard Albert Frederick Riley was lucky to survive a dramatic crash that ended his crime spree.
His mangled car is unregistered. His mangled body will soon test positive for methamphetamine. And that's not even the worst of Albert Riley's crimes. The rampage began the day before with a knife-point robbery at Kmart. The next day he struck the Ravenswood BWS. Minutes later he was walking into the Waverley Topshop, pulling a pistol on a pregnant worker. He demanded cash and cigarettes. When she hears the pistol click, she pleads not to be hurt.
Please don't hurt me. I'm pregnant.
Her distress clear and devastating once he vanishes. Riley's run from authorities barely lasted an hour, ending with a dramatic crash in Newstead. Today, Justice Robert Pearce summarised those frightful final moments. You accelerated dangerously onto the incorrect side of the roadway to overtake other cars. You lost control of your vehicle and slid into the path of a truck. You were seriously injured. For a time, it was thought you might die. The 23-year-old spent weeks in a wheelchair and on crutches. He quickly admitted his part to the armed robberies, as well as evading police and reckless driving. Justice Robert Pearce took into account Riley's early plea of guilty, which removed the need for a jury trial, which would have been delayed because of COVID-19 restrictions. But he added the trauma of each victim still had to be reflected in the sentence. Riley's pistol had been a toy, but Justice Pearce said his victims believed it was real. Both workers have since struggled to recover from the ordeal. Riley was sentenced to 7 years and 3 months in prison. He'll need to spend at least 4 years behind bars before being eligible for parole. Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmanian CSIRO scientists are turning the forced grounding of their research vessel into an opportunity to learn more about the pandemic's effect on our atmosphere. The investigator normally spends 300 days of the year performing monitoring at sea, but due to travel restrictions, is remaining in port at Hobart for the foreseeable future.
Docked, but still on a mission. The aptly named investigator would normally be on its way to Macquarie Island or the Great Barrier Reef, instead remaining tied up in Hobart due to the pandemic.
We finished a 57-day voyage from Fremantle to the Heard Island Macquarie Island group in March, and following that returned to Hobart to essentially undertake a longer period of ship maintenance.
The ship is vital to Australia's marine exploration, spending an average of 300 days at sea each year, performing research that contributes to climate and oceanic science on a global scale. remaining on the waterfront for the next few months. The CSIRO is using the vessel's atmospheric monitoring system to develop a greater understanding of Hobart's air quality.
The opportunity to have investigator in port has been a unique one because we can get really fine-scale data about what's happening here in Hobart over this the couple of months shutdown while the ship is here.
Cautious about what they hope the data will reveal, it is anticipated the collected information will contribute to longer-term research about the effects of coronavirus on the global climate.
We can look at changes on a daily scale, so there might be changes between the morning and the afternoon for certain type of particles and aerosols that are in the air, or it might be some of those longer-term changes that happen over the annual cycle.
Returning to normal operations is set to be a challenge, with physical distancing hard due to the size of the vessel and travel restrictions making it hard for international collaboration.
We are really looking at finalising a restart plan which hopefully will have us back at seagoing operations in the early part of the next financial year.
Ebony ABBLITT, 7 Tasmania News.
Mental health organisation Movember has shed some light on how some men are feeling amid the pandemic. A recent survey revealing more than half of Australian men say no one has asked how they are currently coping. One Hobart group says checking in could make a major difference.
We're asking people to look after themselves, look after their own mental health, but also look after the people around them and ask them how they're doing, listen to the challenges they've been through, show support and then encourage some action.
Anyone in need of support is urged to contact Lifeline. To sport, and as the easing COVID-19 restrictions see sport return to fields, local footy competitions remain up in the air. TSL presidents are yet to find out if they'll receive funding support to get the 2020 season up and running.
AFL Tasmania and TSL presidents on a video conference hookup this afternoon to discuss the future of footy.
They compared to what's happening nationwide and kept applying that to us, saying that this is of the loss and the amount of staff they're down to and that they won't fully go back with a full lot of staff on the mainland, so it can't be expected to be done at this level either.
The competition and whether the 7 clubs will receive funding remains up in the air.
Each TSL president will go away and work on some actual figures to get back to AFL Tas with next week so that we can apply for or send in a budget, I suppose, to work with.
AFL Tasmania says officials will work through the detail together on what a season could look like to deliver it in some form. Meanwhile, a 100-year tradition is gone with Clarence Football Club kicked out of its home ground. The club told it won't be playing any games at Blunston Arena this season. In a statement, Cricket Tasmania says there are infrastructure complications at Blunston Arena, with one unfortunate impact being the inability to install AFL goalposts for this season, but says they have waived all rent costs from March onwards and the club can still access the ground for training if it wishes. If the local footy fixture will commence is also unclear. The NTFA says it's working through its options.
What the integrity of a season like that would look like, and that's another consideration we need to take into account, of getting footy back on the park. Is it worthwhile? Is it worthwhile to get the footy back in late July, August?
The association concedes with 19 clubs in the comp and some already facing financial hardship prior to the pandemic, the coming months will be challenging.
They have struggles to get a football on the park under normal circumstances, let alone under the current circumstance. So we've got to take all those factors into account, like club welfare, which encompasses safety, they're economical.
As for resuming training,
some of the clubs are working towards training, and obviously they've got to adhere to all the protocols that have been put in place, and there is a checklist devised for that under the COVID plan.
The SFL says it remains committed to delivering a football season this year if it's safe and viable to do so, and is working to identify ways to reduce costs. Organisations are eagerly waiting for July 13, with a return to sport to be considered by the state government then. LETITIA Wallace, 7 Tasmanian News.
Good evening. It was a little cloudy over the west, but I think most of us saw a nice autumn day today. Temperatures on a little on the down low side. Hobart and Launceston 13, BRUNY and Devonport 14. Strahan and King Island 15 degrees today. Flinders Island and Grove 14, and most of the other centres on 13. Lyowini reached 10, with Ross our overnight low with -4. Clear skies over the majority of the state, with just that cover over the west and only clipping that southwest coast as well. Low cloud trapped under a high extends over the Bight and the southeastern states. A cold front has cloud south south of Western Australia, more high cloud extends across the north of the nation. Tomorrow, the complex low remains over the Tasman Sea. The high continues to track across the bight. Winds south to southwesterly, 10 to 20 knots, but reaching 30 knots over the east coast, lighter winds over the inland lakes. So in the east, we have a strong wind warning for waters between Cape Portland and Tasman Island, and a frost warning for quite a few districts as well. Forecast for tomorrow. Hobart expecting 15 degrees and a possible light shower. A light shower for Maydena and 13, 12 the top for Oatlands. Launceston a high of 15 degrees, morning frost and partly cloudy during the day. Devonport the same, 15 the top, -2 for Lyalweenie and 8 the top tomorrow. BRUNY expecting 15 and partly cloudy, a light shower for Strawn and 13 degrees, same for Marrawar but 14 the maximum there. And for St Helens partly cloudy, 15, Swansea the same, and Orford cloudy and 15 degrees. On Sunday, light showers over the south and east, fine in the north after morning frost patches. Light showers for the south and east again on Monday. And on Tuesday, partly cloudy with the possibility of a shower over the east and northwest. Sunny and summer-like in Perth, 27 tomorrow. Showers and temperatures in the mid-teens for Adelaide and Melbourne. A shower as well for Sydney, fine and partly cloudy for Brisbane. Mostly clear in Hobart at 7 at the moment, cooling down in Launceston as well, 7 and 7 right now in Devonport. That's it from me for the week. I'd like to remind you though that Volunteering Week, National Volunteering Week, continues right through until Sunday. If you'd like to help out, look at the Tasmania Volunteering website. And as you know, Kim, I spent a lot of time working here during the week, volunteering. My opinion.
How very true. Yeah, we still pay you for it as well. What are we thinking? And that is all your news for now. Join the team over the weekend. Thanks for joining us. Good night.